Hey guys, this is Kyle at ProjectionHub, and we are here with episode 5 of our How to Write a Business Plan for a Startup for SBA mini-series. And so as of right now, episode 5 is the last one in this series. So if this is your first video, I would recommend checking out the ones before this. You can go back to episode 1, or we just wrapped up episode 4, and that's how to do a market analysis section and kind of turn that into the secret weapon of your startup business plan. And so in today's video, we are going to be addressing financial projections. This is probably the one part that every startup, when they're approaching a business plan, gets really overwhelmed and really psyched out, and rightfully so. It's very important, it's complicated, and it's just not people's usually within their skill set. And so today I'm going to be talking about, what are the numbers that actually matter, and give you some tips on how you can approach financial projections, how you can try to take care of them yourself, but what are some other reasonable options available to you, and then how you can apply those into your business plan. So if this is your first video, my name is Kyle, and I lead our custom business plan writing services here at ProjectionHub. We've helped more than 50,000 startups and small businesses create financial projections, business plans, and help them get SBA loans. Now, even if you're not trying to get an SBA loan and you're still putting together a business plan, this video should still be relevant to you. So that does not need to be a requirement to get something from this. Consider subscribing to the channel, like the video if you appreciate it. You can go, as I said, watch the rest of the mini series, but we've got a lot of other great content. And I'll also sprinkle in some free resources and some things you can check out throughout this video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. Alrighty, here we go. So if you've seen our other videos in this series, you'll kind of recognize what I'm doing here. On one side, I've got some example business plans. On the other side, just some notes that you can kind of follow along, right? So if I try to rattle off all these numbers, I don't want you to have to feel like you have to write that all down. I'm going to kind of uncover them and show them to you here. So in today's video, again, we're talking all about the financial projections, the portion of the business plan. Now, I want to kind of clarify up front, financial projections are a segment of your business plan. Like, you will include a section in your business plan and throughout parts of your business plan, but financial projections deserve the attention to be a separate document. Okay, so resist the urge to go just have an AI tool or just like type in some numbers. There is a formality to financial projections that are going to be like in an accepted form. Okay, so I'm going to show you what the summarized and kind of highlighted version looks like when you plug it into your business plan, but I'm also going to show you what does a standalone set of financial projections look like. In today's video, I'm not going to actually show you how to create the projections. I'm going to show you what numbers are important to extract from financial projections, why they're important, how to summarize it in a business plan, and then give you some tools and some resources that you can use to actually make the projections. And we have lots of videos about how to actually make the financial projections. That's just not what we're diving into in great detail today. Okay, so what I've got up here is some example business plans and then our notes over here. And what we really want to talk about is the importance of the projections, some tips to consider with them, and then like what numbers actually matter. What things do you actually need to know from the financial projections to be able to include in your business plan and share with your potential lender. And so the first thing, the importance of the financial projections is, especially if you are a startup, the only thing that a lender really has at their disposal to like make a decision on whether or not they think you're going to be a good credit risk is you personally. So shout out to episode number 2 in this series, where we do a deep dive on the importance of you personally, and then your projections in your business plan, right? You are asking for money for a thing that doesn't exist yet. And so your projections are your attempt to realistically demonstrate how you think the business is going to perform and along what pace. And then if that is believed to be true, then that gives you a much better case of getting approved for your financing. So if your financial projections are not realistic, they're not accurate, they're not trustworthy, then that's a big problem for a lender. So that's why they're going to be important. And your financial projections, like I'm going to show you here, are going to include financial statements. You might hear those referred to as pro formas, right? A profit and loss, an income statement, a balance sheet, a cash flow statement. And I'm not trying not to put you to sleep or overwhelm you. I'm going to show you what those things mean. That is what they are and why they're important. Now, you can see it here on the left side. You can see it over here on the right side. A really important key point about financial projections is they need to be realistic. They need to be accurate, and they need to be within industry norms. And what I mean by that is realistic and industry norms probably go kind of hand in hand. But when you give a potential lender your financial projections, they're going to kind of have this gut reaction to being like, these people have no idea what they're talking about. If the amount of profitability or income or the number of customers or all these things seem way outside the norm for what's typical for your type of industry, they're going to be able to kind of sniff that out. So putting together your projections is more than just making sure you get some numbers put together. It's about making sure you've done your research to say, does this actually make sense for the place that I live? What my costs typically look like here? What do people charge for this kind of service where I'm located at? Do my expense ratio percentage, like the profitability I'm projecting, is that like unheard of in this industry, or is that like within a range? They're going to know those kinds of things, right? So, it's not because they don't have a crystal ball. It's just because they can kind of zoom out and look at what's typical for the industry, and they're going to be able to apply that to you. So we're going to be proactive, and we're going to not only make the projections, but we are going to benchmark those to make sure that they align well and don't set off those alarm bells when a lender might be looking at them. So those are really key things to keep in mind. So now let's kind of talk about what's typically going to be required on the projection side. A lot of SBA lenders are going to want to see like at least 3 years of projections, most likely. Here at ProjectionHub, when we help do projections, or if you use one of our projection templates, they go up to 5 years just to be conservative. In addition to at least 3 years, they're going to probably want to see the first couple of years broken down by month. They're going to want to see every single month for the first years, how you're projecting revenue, costs, when you're going to hire people, all that stuff. And so they don't want to just see the same number across every single month for a year, right? They want to see how you're nuanced, you're planning. Are you going to have seasonality? How are those things going to fluctuate versus just like an annual year, right? It matters what part of the year you start in and some different details along that. And so they're going to want to see that. We're going to be conservative, give them more than they're asking for. And then the other thing that a lender is going to want to see is they're going to need written assumptions. Now you might hear me say the word assumptions a lot. Someone might say the word assumptions a lot. And what are assumptions? They are the assumptions that you're making that are going into and feeding your projections. So for example, if you have a trucking business, how many trucks will you have? How many days per week are those trucks driving? How many miles per day are those trucks going to drive? What's the rate you're charging per mile? How much gas are you paying or buying? And what's the cost of that gas per mile, right? So it's all these little numbers that are going to go into the grand scheme of the calculations. And the reason why the assumptions matter is because a lender wants to understand how you arrived at your projections. So if you just hand them projections and something's off to them and they ask you a question like, well, where are your assumptions? And you don't know, you just had ChatGPT give it to you, or you just found it online or whatever, or you just made it up. They want to see the basis of those assumptions. Those are things to keep in mind. So what numbers actually matter? What is a lender actually going to want to look at? Okay, so first I'll show you kind of the finished product. So into a business plan. I know it's small text right now. It's okay. We're going to look at it closely here, but you can see we start with financial highlights. We do an overview of the 5-year numbers. So we have revenue, cost of goods sold, gross profit, operating expenses, net income annually for each of those years. We have an industry specific breakdown, how we're acquiring our customers, a few key ratios, startup costs, use of funds, how much money do we think we need to start the business? Where are we getting that? Where would we like to get that money from? And how are we breaking down and spending that money? A breakdown of the sales and overview that we're planning and like what growth rate we're kind of looking at, types of expenses. Now expenses broken down between kind of two things here. We have our operating expenses or overhead expenses. So the things that you have to pay for every single month. And then you have this cost of goods sold. So the things that are actually going into. So think of that as like food costs in a restaurant. That's going to be a cost of goods sold. If you have an hourly employee, right, that's going to kind of go into that cost of goods sold. Typically that is just like the cost of the materials that you're going into, right? You can't sell that thing without a cost inside that thing. And then we've got our actual financial statements. So in this case, in this example, they're just annual ones, but you can have monthly ones too. So we have an income statement, often referred to as a profit and loss, right? So this is where it's going to break down your revenue, what money's going out, and then how much is left over, profitability or the loss at the end. You're going to have your statement of cash flows, which is actually measuring money coming in and out by category of the business. So it's a little bit different than your net income, right? Because you're actually just tracking how much cash you had, how much is coming in, how much goes out the door, and how much cash you're left over with. So profitability or profit and loss can be misleading because maybe it shows you're profitable, maybe it shows that you had a loss, but when you actually look at the cash flow statement, it might tell a different story based upon that. It's a little bit more detailed. And then your balance sheet, right? So breakdown of your assets, how much they're worth, as well as your liabilities and how much you owe, short-term and long-term debts. And then obviously the difference between that is going to be your equity. So just like a house, if it's worth $500,000 and you owe $250,000, then you have $250,000 in equity. So those are the financial statements going to be included. We've got a break-even analysis here, right? So I just said a lot of things. I don't mean to make you feel overwhelmed. I just want you to have an example here. Once you have projections, this is an example of we'll extract things from those projections. We put them into our business plan. We have a little bit of writing around them. You can even use a tool like an AI tool to help you write some of the summary around those numbers. I'm just urging you not to use those tools to create your projections for you because I don't think that they're going to be trustworthy. Now, how can you use those tools to help the projections? Finding out what your financial assumptions are going to be. All right, we can't cover that all in today's video because it's going to be different for every single industry. So now let's jump into what numbers are going to actually matter, broadly speaking. Now, these are going to differ between your industry. So if you're starting an ice cream shop or a laundromat or a pottery studio or a dog boarding business or an e-commerce store, that's why you can go and Google that. What are typical financial assumptions? I mean, if you really would sit down and think hard about it, you probably know a lot of those assumptions. You're going to know those key details. If you have a coffee shop, how many seats do you have in there? How long do people typically stay, right? Those are the types of assumptions you need to look into, but you can use a tool. That's where something like a ChatGPT is really helpful. Ask it to create a list of the financial assumptions you need to figure out for your industry or your business business in order to create projections. So what are some of the numbers that a lender is going to look at? So we've got startup cost, uses of funds. And again, these are a lot of the things I just showed you are going to be in your business plan. Industry relevant assumptions, projected revenue, projected cost of goods sold, gross profit, which is just your revenue minus your cost of goods sold, operating expenses, sometimes referred to as OPEX, just people trying to talk fancy. So those are going to be your overhead costs, the things you're going to pay for every single month. Net income. So how profitable are you when you've taken away all those cost of goods sold or operating expenses? Debt service coverage ratio, which sounds intimidating, but this is more so like what your lender is going to look at. And so I promise you, I wouldn't create your projections from the perspective of what your debt service coverage ratio is. I would just do your best to make really realistic and good projections, make sure the profitability looks reasonable, and then debt service coverage ratio after that, you can play with that a little bit. And the break-even point. So are you planning to actually be profitable? I like to look at two things here. One, when is the first month you're going to actually start regularly being profitable on a monthly basis? And then the technical definition of break-even point is like when your total revenue surpasses the total costs that you've had. That might be at a later date, but it's essentially when you're kind of recouping everything you put into it. Okay, so let's bring up an actual set of financial projections so I can show you quickly about what they're going to look like and kind of some options for how you can make financial projections. So this is an example of a financial projection template we have. This is not meant to be like a sales commercial. This is not the only way to create projections. This is the set of projections I have because this is how we would help clients with them. So you can see here, see all these like blue boxes and all the information going into them. Those are those assumptions I talked about. So we're talking about, this was for a laundromat. So how many units are we going to have? How much are those laundromat units going to cost us? How much of a loan are we looking to get? Are we going to have an investor? And then we're going to get into our revenue assumptions. So now we understand what our units are going to be. When are we going to acquire those units? How much will those units make us, right? So these are those assumptions. They're the little things we put in. And then, the projections are going to, the template, this in this case is going to do the work for us. Our operating expenses, our salaries, our labor employees. And then we're going to get all these nice charts and graphs, right? So those are the things I just showed you. So if you use a tool like this, it's really nice because it can give you the things that I just showed you to put in your business plan. Other options for getting your projections created, you can work with an accountant. There are some software tools out there that will help you do your projections. You can buy templates like this that will help you do it. We have a free 1-year financial projection template. I'll link that down in the description below. If you're interested in those kinds of templates, go to our website. Almost every page has these view templates. So you can find the ones that are specific to your industry, makes that process a little bit easier. Those are the numbers, and those are the things that your lender is going to want to see. Now, those tools, and so let's say you do your projections. Again, you're going to want to go Google or use ChatGPT or something like that and ask things like, what is a typical profit margin for a coffee shop? And once you have projections, to pull those back up so I can show you, things like this are going to show me that profit margin is going to look like, and net profit and my gross profit. So I can easily see as a percentage, is this within the range of what's typical for an industry? And I can do that with any number in my projections. And that's going to help you avoid that issue when you're talking to a lender, you're showing them your projections. They're not going to be like, whoa, how did you come up with these? These numbers don't make any sense, because you've done the projections, you did the research on your assumptions, you used those when you made your projections, and then you benchmarked your projections with what's typical for the industry. And so you can rest at ease knowing that like they're at least grounded in reality, right? When you're putting them together. So financial projections, I know can be a lot, I know they can be confusing, but that's kind of the general breakdown. What numbers are important that a lender is going to be looking at. There are these things over here. You can do research using some easy tools, find those. Get your projections made either by using a template or a software tool in your own, or you can hire a service, hire an accountant. You can hire someone like ProjectionHub to create your projections and make that process easy. And then we're going to integrate those into your business plan, grabbing some visuals, those financial statements you're going to get, and with a little bit of summary around them. And that's all there is to the financial projections. So do not sleep on the financial projections. They're probably the most important part of your business plan. And so I encourage you to take them seriously. Reach out if you have help. Put your comments down below if you have questions about this. Reach out to us at support@projectionhub.com if you have questions. A couple of other free things you can take advantage of, I've linked in the description below. We have a free startup feasibility review. So if you're in the stages of like, I don't even know if my business is a good idea, if this is worth it, you can fill out this free form, give us a little bit of information. We'll give you feedback. If you already have a business plan and you want it reviewed, we have a free business plan review. We'll review your projections. We'll review just about anything for free to offer you some feedback and some recommendations. If you appreciated this video, it would be really helpful for us if you give it a like, consider subscribing to the channel. We talk through lots of different things that are valuable to startups and small businesses. We would love the chance to work with you if you need help. Go back if this is your first video, watch the whole series, and let us know if you have any questions about how to put together your startup business plan. Thanks.